Today's lesson is about converting within the imperial system. So before I get started, we're just going to review again how to solve a proportion, because we are going to be converting within the imperial system using proportions. So these were basically the same examples in the last lesson, but just to remind you that how we solve a proportion is we cross multiply. So we go 15 times 8, which gives me 120. And then we go n times 22, which gives me 22n. And then we need to solve for n. So we divide by 22 on both sides. And 120 divided by 22 gives me 5.5. So n is equal to 5.5. This next example is the same thing. We can go x times 6, which gives me 6x. And 30 times 2, which gives me 60, and then divide both sides by 6, which leaves me with x is equal to 10. Same process, same strategy. We can go n times 8, which gives me 8n, and 12 times 2, which gives me 24. Divide both sides by 8, and we are left with n equals 3. And again, 5 cross multiply, 5 times h gives me 5h, and 14 times 4 gives me 56. Divide both sides by 5, and h is equal to 11.2, or 11 and 2/10. So those are the same examples that we had covered, but it was just a reminder as to how to solve for those variables. So now, this just shows you the relationship between different units. Just to remind you, the imperial system is inch, foot, yard, and mile. And these are the conversion factors that we are going to use. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, 1 yard equals 3 feet, 1 yard equals 36 inches, 1 mile equals 1,760 yards, and 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. So those are the conversion factors that we're going to use to answer the next questions. Now the first one asks us to convert 5 yards to feet. So when you're doing this, the first step is to look at your conversion factors and decide which one you're going to use. Now this one is yards and feet. So we want to find the second one here. It says 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, yard and feet. First step is to write that down. So 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. Now we want to set up a proportion. We want to convert 5 yards to how many feet? So you have to make sure that you put your yards under your yards. So I want 5 yards is equal to X amount of feet. That's my variable. That's what I want to find. Once I have my proportion set up, I can solve it with cross multiplication. So 1 times x is just x, or 1x, and 5 times 3 gives me 15. So 15 feet is equivalent to 5 yards. Now the next one says 6 yards to inches. So again, we have to look here and see which one am I going to choose from. So then I want this third one that says yard to inches. So first thing, let's write that down. 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. Now to set up our proportion, we want to find out 6 yards is equal to X amount of inches. So we put 6 yards. Again, make sure your yards and your yards are under each other. Don't put your yards underneath your inches. They have to be the same unit of measure. So X inches is what I want to find. So again, we could cross multiply. X times 1 gives me X, and 36 times 6 gives me 216 inches. So 6 yards is equivalent to 216 inches. So let's keep going. Another example, feet to inches. So let's go look here again. The first one, feet to inches, is what we want to find. So first step is to write that down. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. I have 32 feet that I want to convert into inches. So again, make sure your feet are under your feet, your inches are under your inches. We cross multiply. X times 1 is X, and 32 times 12 is 384 inches. Now, 5 miles to yards. So the conversion factor we want to take here is this one. It's 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards. So let's start by writing that down. Again, it's always set up a proportion to start, and then you could solve your proportion. Now, what I want to find is how many yards are in 5 miles. So I'm going to put the 5 miles underneath your miles, and X amount of yards will be my answer. So cross multiply, X times 1 is X, and 5 times 1,760 gives me 8,800 yards. Just like that. Now, 30 feet to yards. So we need to go and look feet and yards. No, it doesn't have to be in the same order. So here I see a yard and a foot. This is the one that we want. So 1 yard equals 3 feet. So here you just got to make sure that when you're setting up your proportion that your 30 feet has to go under the 3 feet. Feet go under feet. And the yards is what we want to find. So now if I cross multiply, I have an extra step here, because if I go X times 3, that's 3X, equals 30 times 1, which gives me 30. But now I still have to solve for X. So remember, we have to divide both sides by 3. So that tells me that X would be equal to 10 yards. So 10 yards would be equivalent to 30 feet. Now, the last example in this section is 3 miles to inches. So when I look at my conversion factors, I don't have any that says miles to inches, but we can figure it out because this says 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So in order to get inches, because the question is asking for inches, we just have to convert the 5,280 feet to inches. So in that case, I'll just do it up here. Feet to inches is 1 foot equals 12 inches. Now I want to convert 5,280 feet to how many inches? So there, if I cross multiply, it's 5,280 times 12. So that gives me 63,360 inches. Now, so then the conversion factor that I need here is miles to inches. So I'm going to keep my 1 mile equals, but instead of the 5,280 feet, I know that this is equivalent to 63,360 inches. So I'm going to put that. Now to set up my proportion, I want 3 miles, and I want to know how many inches. Now if we cross multiply, X times 1 is just X, and 3 times 63,360 gives me 190, 80 inches. So there's your answer. All right, moving along. So now this next question is a little different. You want to convert 28 inches to feet and inches. So basically you want to know exactly how many feet there are, and if it doesn't go in exactly, how many inches I have left over. Now we could still use a proportion to figure this out. So inches to feet is what I would need to do first. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Now I have 28 inches. Again, we put inches under inches, and I want to know X amount of feet, how many feet that is. So 12 times X gives me 12X, and 28 times 1 gives me 28. Then I need to solve for X, so I need to divide both sides by 12. This gives me a decimal number. It's 2.3 periodic. Now, I can read this as I've got 2 feet plus 0.3 feet. So if you add those two together, it gives you 2.3. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because I know for sure I have 2 feet. But now I need to convert this into inches to find out how many inches I've got left. That means I need to convert feet to inches. So the conversion factor is 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. I know that I have 0.3 periodic feet, and I want to know how many inches that is. Now, when you're doing this on your calculator, if I cross multiply, it's x times 1, which gives me x, but I got to go with 0.3 periodic times 12. So when you type that in, make sure you put a bunch of 3's to make it look like it's periodic, times 12, and it gives me 4. So that means that I've got 4 inches left over. So the answer to this question is 28 inches convert to feet and inches, while I know that I have 2 feet and 4 inches. So that would be your answer. 28 inches is equivalent to 2 feet, 4 inches. All right, that's the complicated one. The other ones are not that bad. So now this next one says 8 yards to inches. So the conversion factor we need is yard to inches. So it's here, it's written here. It's 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. I have 8 yards, so I put 8 under yards and x under inches. Cross multiply, x times 1 gives me x, and 36 times 8 is 288 inches. So there's your answer. So that one was a little more simpler. Now, 3 feet to inches. Well, feet to inches, we again need the conversion factor that has feet to inches. Let's write that down. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. We put feet under feet, so the 3 feet goes there, and I want to know how many inches that's equivalent to. Cross multiply, x times 1 is x, and 12 times 3 is 36. So 36 inches is your answer. Now, 5 miles to inches. Now, just like the question above, we don't have miles to inches, but we have miles to feet, right? So then we can convert this 5,280 feet to inches, which I already did above here, so I don't need to redo it. So if we use the same conversion factor here, 1 mile equals 63,360 inches. So that's what I'm going to write down. Now I've got 5 miles, and I want to know how many inches that is. So I put x there. Cross multiply, x times 1 is x, and 5 times 63,360 gives me 316,800 inches. All right, 30 feet to yards. Now, yards and feet, if we look at here, it's right here. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. Now watch the order, because the feet are over here. So your 30 feet, you need to put it under your feet, and you put X amount of yards. Now if I cross multiply, X times 3 gives me 3X. 30 times 1 gives me 30. Then we divide by 3. So X is equal to 10 yards. All right, now this next one is another miles to inches. So again, we can still use this conversion factor that I have here instead of doing all that work again. 1 mile is equal to 63,360 inches. I have 3 miles, and we want to know how many inches that is. So that gives us 190,080 inches, which happens to exactly be the same example as this one. So we did the same one twice. All right, so I hope that works. I hope that you understand that. And you always set up your proportion to start, and then you solve your proportion. Now, a different kind of question you might see in the practice is add the following. Now, these are symbols that are used for feet and inches. So if there's one line, it's feet. If there's two, it's inches. Now, just to remember that in 1 foot, there are 12 inches. So that would be written with the symbol would be 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Now, that's important in this kind of question, because if I have more than 12 inches, I can convert some of those to feet. So if I do this first one, well, I see that I've got 2 feet, 3 inches, 4 feet, 5 inches. Well, the 2 feet and the 4 feet are going to give me 6 feet in total. And the 3 inches and the 5 inches gives me 8 inches. Now, 8 inches, I'm still under 12, which is perfect. I can't simplify that, so I leave it as is. So 6 feet, 8 inches would be my answer. The next one, if I add 6 feet and 4 feet, that gives me 10 feet. And 4 inches and 8 inches gives me 12 inches. But this 12 inches is equivalent to 1 foot. So if this is equal to 12 inches equal to 1 foot, then I actually have 11 feet. I have 10 feet here and I have 1 here, so that gives me 11. That's how you simplify it. This next one, again, I'll start by adding my feet. So 1 and 4 give me 5. And then if I add my inches, 7 plus 9 gives me 16 inches. Well, now you can see that this 16 inches can be divided in 12 inches and 4 inches. And this 12 inches gives me a foot. So I've got 5 feet plus this foot, which gives me 6 in total. And I've got 4 inches left over. And that would be how you would simplify it. So that's all there is to converting. Now you can go ahead and do your practice.